to unfold.
Para sa amin, the blame falls squarely on the Senate leadership o under Alan Peter Cayetano. Imagine, 3 araw pa lang po siya. Hindi lang po naging shootout yung Senado and naging katatawanan nga nung nagkaroon pa ng habulan nung Monday. Para sa amin, klaro po that the Senate leadership is complicit sa obstruction of justice. At hindi lang po obstruction of justice, aiding and abetting na po yan. Tinulungan na po niya yung tumatakbo sa panawagan ng katarungan.
For its part, the NBI said its investigation will also cover whether the shooting incident and Senator De La Rosa's departure from the Senate building are connected. NBI Director Melvin Matibag added that they are coordinating closely with the Philippine National Police to determine the full circumstances surrounding the incident.
Kung merong pagtingin yung ibang mga kababayan natin na mukhang stage ang commotion na ginawa para palabasin si Senator Bato, meron po ba kayong ganong naulinigan?
Well, I will be very honest, Yusek Claire, no? That's the sentiment of our NBI agents kasi nandoon kami. So isa na po sa aming tinitingnan yon. Kaya naman po, doon sa ibang mga katanungan tungkol doon, ang sinasabi ko lang, we will always defer to the judgment of the Department of Justice dahil sila po yung primerong ahensya na namumuno po rito.
Cayetano has insisted that the shooting incident was an actual attack and not a diversionary tactic.
Kung tututukan kita ng baril, papasukin ko bahay mo na may baril ako. Nag-warning shot ka, pinutukan kita pabalik. Is it not an attack? Sorry but I don't think there's any question. The Senate is under attack. Was under attack. Napakagaling ko naman mag-orchestrate ng lahat na yan. Kaya kong papuntahin dito mga armadong grupo.
Let's get insights from ICC accredited lawyer and common legal representative of the victims, Attorney Gilbert Andres. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Attorney.
Good morning, Angelo and Angela. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start off, Attorney. Of course, yung reaction nyo sa Senate shooting incident, which is tied up, of course, to supposedly Senator Bato escaping the Senate.
Well, 4 points on the part of the victims of the war on drugs. Number one, if our senators want to be safe, the victims of the war on drugs also want to be safe. Number two, if the senators want the truth, the victims of the war on drugs under Chief PNP Bato de la Rosa also want the truth, and they also want justice for their murdered relatives. Number three, if the Senate wants full investigation, the victims also want full investigation into the murders of their relatives, but there was none here in the Philippines. That's why the ICC came in. And fourth, if some senators felt fear because of the shootings that they've heard, the victims also felt fear and trauma because of the actual shooting and murder of their loved ones, and some of them even inside their homes.
Ano yung attorney yung kasing argument dito while ang general sentiment ng government, ang DOJ of course is pwede naman the warrant of arrest is valid ng ICC kay Senator Bato, but parang ginawang subject to interpretation ng Senate President, ng current Senate President. Ano po ba ang explanation dito, attorney?
Well, that's actually wrong. The Senate does not interpret the law. The Senate actually passes the law and should respect it as one of the houses that passes the law. Number two, who implements the law? It's the executive. And I think that there are 3 points that should be understood. Context is very important. The context here is an ICC arrest warrant for an international crime. This is not merely a domestic crime. This is not merely an ordinary crime. This is a crime against nations, and in fact, it's a crime everywhere in the world. Secondly, there's also the law, RA 9851, which is the basis for implementing the ICC arrest warrant. And third, there's actually Philippine state practice. If an ICC arrest warrant was implemented by government authorities last year against former President Duterte, there should be no difference when implementing it against Senator Bato.
Well, I was wondering, Attorney, if does this incident in the Senate highlight actually the continued political influence of the Duterte camp and the perceived limitation of the Philippine justice system, thereby strengthening the calls na dapat sa ICC or International Court dinggin yung ganitong klaseng kaso.
Well, I actually agree because in fact this shows that there's still influence by the Duterte family, and in fact there's really no real criminal investigation as to the Duterte Bato de la Rosa war on drugs that occurred and which resulted in thousands of murders. That's why the ICC came in. In fact, the victims trust the ICC because here they only see politics in the Philippines.
Right. So kumbaga, yung nangyayari, yung mga ginagawa ngayon ng kampo ni Senator Bato de la Rosa ay nakasasama palalo doon sa kaso nga nitong alleged crimes against humanity ni Duterte na he himself is also involved as the indirect co-perpetrators.
Well, I think in some sense that political context will also serve as the backdrop dun sa review of the continued detention ni Mr. Duterte as an accused. Kasi grabe sarili nating Senado mismo
Right.
kumubli po doon si Senator Bato So pwede po siyang larger socio-political backdrop.
Pero what can you also say about the executive as compared to how the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte was handled to this case of Senator Bato de la Rosa?
The victims of the war on drugs want the administration of President Marcos Jr. to be very clear. Are they implementing the ICC arrest warrant? And they should be implementing the ICC arrest warrant against Senator Bato. Why? There's jurisprudence. There's already Republic Act 9851. There's jurisprudence that we adhere to international law as part of the law of the land. And in fact, crimes against humanity is a domestic crime here in the Philippines and anywhere in the world. And third, there's already clear Philippine state practice last year. The executive actually implemented the ICC arrest warrant against a former president. Why is Senator Bato any different?
Right.
At Attorney, do you feel that there was a disconnect between the agencies and how everything was handled? Because ang question sa marami is, bakit hindi PNP ang nag-effect ng initial warrant sa basement instead of the NBI? And in the first place, yun ang katanungan ng marami. Do you have any idea, Attorney? And iba ang messaging parang ng DOJ at DILG
Well, number one, I think the DOJ spokesperson already made it clear that the legal basis for implementing an ICC arrest warrant is RA 9851. And then one of the modes is surrender. Now, they also said extradition, but extradition is really for an arrest warrant by another foreign state. The ICC is not a foreign state. It's not a foreign court. It's a permanent international criminal court established by the community of nations. Number two, this is a matter of operations. Now, NBI, Philippine National Police, they're all law enforcement agencies. As to which will be the lead agency, that's really up to the executive. But the plea of the victims is the executive should be clear. They should hear the plea for truth and justice of the victims, and they should implement the ICC arrest warrant.
So you mentioned earlier that the president should be clear about how they should implement the ICC arrest warrant. Don't you think, Attorney, yung naging speech ni President yesterday to stand down, ay talagang hindi nakasama yun sa pagiging sa pagkakaroon ng confusion on how to get General Bato de la Rosa?
Well, I think so. And let's be clear about this. It's a different matter yung pag-i-implement po ng ICC arrest warrant. Because anyway, what allegedly happened before in the Senate is part of an investigation by the lead agency, PNP. So, iwanan na po natin yan kasi ang mas malaking usapin po dito, standing arrest warrant by an international criminal court for an international crime, and we're already known all over the world right now for the wrong reasons. Because of this, it should be implemented by our executive.
And how are the victims right now? Ano po yung kanilang komento dito sa nangyayari ngayon na knowing that Senator Bato de la Rosa is, well, at large, no? He is declared as a suspect in the website of ICC. Ano po yung kanilang komento dito sa nangyayari?
Yung mga biktima po ay talagang naghihinagpis, oo, nagsusumamo, talaga pong deeply disappointed po sila sa nangyayari dahil hindi po naaresto si Senator Bato kahit po mayroon po siyang standing ICC arrest warrant. Kaya po actually galit po sila sa mga nangyayari. Parang tingin nila iba yung batas if you are powerful, iba po yung batas pag pobre ka po. Sila po pinaslang lang po ng walang kaano-ano, no? Walang arrest warrant, walang search warrant, pinaslang po mga mahal nila sa buhay. Pero ito pong powerful, talagang pinoproteksyonan po. Kaya all they want is truth and justice for their murdered loved ones.
And attorney, of course lumalabas ngayon sa balita, no, na humihingi ng police to be placed under police PNP custody si General Bato. Okay ba kayo dito at least until such time that the Supreme Court decides on its TRO and at least hawak na nila si General Bato if ever?
Alam niyo po, every first year law student knows na the executive implements the law. Now, if there's no TRO, it still is within the power of the executive to implement the law, specifically RA 9851 na pinasa na po mismo ng ating Senado at ng House po noong December 2009. At pinasa po ito nung panahon pong hindi po tayo parte ng Rome Statute. Kaya na-foresee na po yan ng Senado at ng House na pwede pong isurrender ang isang tao po na iniimbestigahan ng isang international court. Kaya alam niyo po, ang gusto lang po talaga ng mga biktima, patas po na pagsunod sa batas at sana po sundin po ito ng ating mga opisyalis.
Kumbaga, there's a live warrant of arrest that can be execute ASAP. Pero attorney, May 27, if I'm not mistaken, is the case conference. Tama po ba yun sa ICC?
Tama
Is
po
that
yun,
May
May
27?
27
So what
is
is
the first
going-
status conference.
Ayun. So ano po yung mangyayari doon?
So ito po talaga yung mga administratibong parte ng kaso, mga 10 po ang itatalakayin. Una po, kailan po magsisimula ang paglilitis. Ikalawa po, ano pa po bang mga anticipated evidence po ng prosecution. Third po, ano po ba ang isasiwalat na ibibigay po na depensa ng depensa kung meron man po. Ika-4 po, sa patalakayin din kung ano po ang wikang gagamitin po sa paglilitis ng mga partido, mga victim participants at pati na rin po ng mga testigo. At ika-6 po, ano pa bang mga motion na kailangan bang isolusyonan bago po ang simula ng paglilitis. At mga 5 pa pong mga iba pang mga administrative matters. So ito po yung tatalakayan para po mas maigi po ang preparasyon para sa paglilitis.
Now that the defense has a new lawyer, attorney, if I'm not mistaken, Paul Haynes, no?
Peter Haynes.
Peter Haynes. Ano po yung, I don't know if nakausap niyo na po yung prosecution recently, but what do they have to say about this, knowing that attorney Peter Haynes has a acquittal record, no? Doon sa isa kanyang case, crimes against humanity then to against former
Bemba, former Vice President
ng Republic of Congo. Yeah.
Hindi po ako makapagsalita para sa Office of the Prosecutor kasi iba po kami, bukod po kami para po kami sa mga victims. That's common legal representative of the victims.
Right.
Having said that, I will speak for the victims as their lawyer. Actually, kung sino man pong maging defense counsel, ang mas mahalaga po ang ebidensya. Ano bang mapapalabas? Ano pong representang ebidensya ng prosecution at patingin po ng mga victims sa mga suffered harm po nila, ang batas po which is the Rome Statute. Yun po yung mas mahalaga kasi iba po ang factual context po ng Bemba case, iba din po dito sa the prosecutor versus Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Well, maraming salamat po muli sa inyong time and of course sa inyong insights. ICC accredited lawyer and common legal representative of the victims, Attorney Gilbert Andres. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Salamat, Angelo at Angel.
All right, the question is, who fired first inside the Senate? An NBI agent now claims it was Sergeant-at-Arms Mau Aplaska. News 5's Gio Robles reports.
Kasama natin yung mga ahente ng NBI.
Around 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 14, NBI personnel entered this part of the ground floor of the GSIS building after hearing clanking and drilling sounds. NBI agents found these men boarding through a door which we later found out to be a passageway to the Senate premises. As it turned out, these men were workers hired by the GSIS management. Then, multiple gunshots rang in the air. At this time, we were still in the GSIS building with NBI agents and workers. No idea at all where the noise was coming from. Eventually, it became clearer where the shots emanated.
Ayan. Ayan, ayan. Base po sa mga ahente natin sa NBI, galing po sa ground floor ng Senate itong sunod-sunod na putok ng barel na naririnig po natin.
Somehow, the NBI agents finally realized they were the targets, but they could not determine the source of the bullets. After a few more minutes passed, we caught sight of other NBI agents also deployed around the GSIS building. One of them said it was Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Mau Aplaska who fired the first shot.
Tumutok ng tatlo pa atras. Problem ako. Saan kayo sir? Di ba sa... Yung sa Australia Kanda? Sa kantin? Oo, dito sila lumabas sa bayan. Yung nakabintintuan ng Kanda.
According to the agent, he and his companions were in the bridgeway in the second floor of the GSIS building. It was Aplaska who just emerged from a door from the Senate, suddenly opened fire and right at him. The embattled agent had no choice but to retaliate in self-defense.
Siya na una, nakamahaba siya,
Fortunately, no one in the side of the building was hurt. For News 5, Gio Robles, we are One News.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. A crucial week ahead as the Senate is set to convene as an impeachment court for the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. Here's the report.
Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano signed the letter from House Speaker Bogie D. formally confirming receipt of the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte. The documents were delivered to the Senate just moments before the gunfire incident inside the chamber. On Monday, May 18, the Senate will convene as an impeachment court. The House prosecution panel is also expected to attend the convening of the court. Cayetano said the Senate Majority Bloc has already held a meeting and said the impeachment rules will remain unchanged. However, this still depends on any motion from the Minority Bloc.
Sinabi ko doon on Monday or the soonest time or forthwith, no? If everyone agrees on the rule, I do not see any reason why hindi kami makapag-convene sa Monday.
Once the impeachment court convenes, Cayetano will take his oath as presiding officer, along with 23 senators who will serve as judges. This will be followed by the issuance of summons and a response from Vice President Sara Duterte before pre-trial proceedings begin. The timeline for the actual trial, however, remains uncertain. Cayetano says the Senate will not delay the process and will follow the constitutional rules. He also denied claims that members of the majority bloc are opposed to holding the impeachment trial.
Agree kami lahat, there's no reason whatsoever to dilly-dally. Okay? Having said that, syempre, kung may nag-bring up na ito yung mga ganyan-ganyan, etc., bukas na yan or whatever ganyan, baka magbotohan. But so far, yung aming 13, ang sinasabi, there's no reason why not to convene and take our oaths on Monday.
Meanwhile, House prosecutors continue their preparations for the trial. Lawmaker Laila De Lima, Joel Chua, and Chel Jokno have confirmed they have already divided the articles they will handle. Jokno says the trial will not be easy, but his experience in litigation will help the prosecution team.
Ang impeachment trial ay para siyang trial sa korte pero ramp up pa siya. Medyo ang level ng na attention lalong-lalo na ng publiko ay talaga andon. So having some experience under your belt really helps. Hindi lang naman 'yon. Ako'y nakikipaglaban na sa korte ng 3 dekada na. So I hope that I can bring that experience as well to the impeachment court.
Vice President Sara Duterte, for her part, says she's leaving her defense to her legal team.
We have a defense team, impeachment defense team who takes care of the issues and concerns regarding the impeachment. So I leave it up to the lawyers to do their work.
Her lawyer earlier said they are ready to respond to all allegations in the proper forum, the impeachment court.
Let's now get the latest from the House of Representatives with mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy, what are the preparations of the House prosecution panel so far?
Good morning, Angela, Diego. Mamaya nga ay makakausap din natin, makakapanayam natin si Bicol Sara Party List Representative at miyembro na ng House Prosecution Panel na si Terry Ridon para nga matalakay kung ano nga ba yung preparations na ginagawa na ng House Prosecution Panel dahil nga inaasahan na sa May 18 ay magko-convene na ang Senate Impeachment Court. Pero gaya nga din nasabi kanina, may mga kinakailangan pa rin talagang gawin bago magsimula yung mismong trial ng impeachment nito ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Kahapon narinig din natin doon sa press conference naman ni Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano na after nga nitong issuance, may chance pa rin daw kasi na iset din nila yung calendar para nga dito sa impeachment. Nung tinanong namin siya offhand, ano nga ba yung nakikita rin ni SP na magiging timeline for this, ang nasabi niya lang is, ang possibility na nakikita niya is kapag may trial from Monday to Wednesday, whole day, and then Thursday daw yung committee hearings nila, or half day ng Monday to Thursday, and then early on yung magiging committee hearings. Pero technically, sa House end naman, Angela, Diego, ay talagang naghahanda na rin nung nakaraang araw si Representative Nonoy Defensor naman, yung nakausap natin, ang nakikita niya din daw na possibility ay ma-handle niya din yung case or yung article on grave threat dahil yun na nga din daw yung assign sa kanya last year. So, yun yung mga nakikita pa natin. Aalamin natin if may nakaset na ding meetings for the House Prosecution Panel para nga mas matalakay yung magiging takbo nitong impeachment at syempre kung sino-sino nga ba yung ma-assign. Of course, titingnan din natin yung magiging lista ng private lawyers or private litigators pagdating nga dito sa impeachment. Pero so far, yun lang naman yung ine-expect natin na magpakita nga itong House Prosecution Panel on May 18, 3 p.m. sa Senado para nga sa convening ng Senate Impeachment Court. Angela, Diego?
Okay. Nasabi na ba sa'yo, Amy, yung magiging division of work nitong House Prosecution Panel? Sino yung hahawak ng kaso sa articles of impeachment ng confidential funds, etc.?
So far, wala pa wala pa akong nakukuhang info pagdating dyan, Angela, pero yun nga, expected baka today may meeting din itong House Prosecution Panel dahil nga sa Monday na yung anticipated. So far, yun nga lang yung nabanggit ko, yung katulad ng sinabi ni Representative Defensor, may mga hati-hati sila doon sa articles of impeachment. Technically, nandoon din naman kasi sa rules of impeachment proceedings na 11 talaga yung magiging members ng House Prosecution Panel. So silang 11, regardless of the number of the articles of impeachment, doon sila maghahati-hati. And syempre, yon pangungunahan yun ni Justice Committee Chairperson Jervy Luistro para nga dito sa prosecution team pagdating ng pagsisimula ng Senate impeachment trial.
Go ahead.
No. I was wondering if meron din silang comment doon sa magiging or doon sa naging proposal na amendment ni Senator Rodante Marcoleta. Of course, this is the rules ng Senate impeachment ng Senate as a whole na nagpo-propose siya na magkaroon ng electronic voting, parang mag-amend siya doon ng hindi lang for national emergencies. Meron bang naging comment ngayon ang Congress regarding that? Because the reason why I'm asking that, because if ever, 'di ba, wala si Senator Bato de la Rosa, baka maaari nilang gustong kunin din yung boto niya kahit wala siya sa plenaryo or doon sa impeachment court.
Ngayon, Angela, wala pa akong naririnig particularly or directly relating to that comment or of Senator Rodante Marcoleta. Pero ang lagi kasing sinasabi din dito sa House, if makikita natin, lagi talagang dapat sundin yung process, yung constitutional process nitong impeachment. So, hindi ko sure, pero baka ang gusto talaga nila yung traditional way nga of doing this impeachment, lalo na dahil kung makikita din naman itong naging takbo ng impeachment ni VP Sara pagdating sa House of Representatives ay talagang sinundan nila yung proseso. So dinetermine din nila yung sufficiency in form and substance with all the members of the House Justice Committee and the ex-official members participating in that hearing. So yun yung mga nakita natin sa process, pero alamin din natin later on kapag nakausap din natin yung ilang mga kongresista dito kung ano nga ba yung magiging komento nila on that.
Amy, yesterday we spoke to Congressman Ridon also, and nabanggit na niya that they were starting or they're already in the process of, and binanggit mo rin kanina sa report mo, of pag-assign in groups of 4 yung articles of impeachment at sino hawak. In-announce na ba nila sino yung mga congressmen or mga prosecutors na hawak per article of impeachment?
Well, so far wala pa rin akong info dyan, Diego. Pero kung titingnan din natin yung articles of impeachment kasi makikita natin doon yung 4 na confidential funds, sa unexplained wealth, sa bribery, pati doon sa grave threats. So yan lang naman yung 4 na iikutan din talaga ng mga mababatas natin sa Kamara. So inaasahan natin na may ilang mga congressmen na magte-take doon sa specialty talaga nila, doon sa kung ano nga ba yung expertise nila. So pwedeng ito, katulad nga ni Representative na defensor na sabi niya na sa grave threat talaga siya, mas nakatutok and sa tingin niya, isa din yun sa pinakamatibay na ebidensya para nga doon sa pagpapatunay ng mga alegasyon laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. So alamin din natin kung ano nga ba yung magiging division din itong House Prosecution Panel pagdating dyan. Pero technically, 4 yan, doon nga sa confidential funds, unexplained wealth, bribery, pati na rin grave threat. So yan yung titingnan natin na mga sections or articles na paghahati-hatian nga ng 11 members ng House Prosecution Team.
Tsaka Amy, di ba si Congressman Ridon, I think yung finocus niya during the hearings sa Justice Committee is yung mga about unexplained wealth tsaka yung SALN, no?
So makikita din natin kung paano nga din paano i-present nito ni Bicol Sara Party List Representative Terry Ridon din itong pagdating nga dito sa unexplained wealth most likely ni VP Sara. So ang nakikita natin, he's gonna play by the numbers. It's either the confidential funds or doon nga sa SALN din sa unexplained wealth ni VP Sara dahil ito nga din yung isa din sa mga malalaking naisiwalat kasi kung maalala natin sa confidential funds doon yung disposal ng 125 million pesos in less than a day habang doon naman sa SALN walang cash declaration since 2019 at yun nga merong 6.7 billion pesos na red flag bank transactions. So nung nagtanong-tanong din tayo tayo, Diego, no, sa ilang mga mambabatas, nakikita nila na ito ang mismong figure na ito, itong 6.7 billion pesos, ito daw talaga yung biggest piece of evidence din na makikita para nga mapatalsik or ma-impeach si Vice President Sara Duterte.
Alright, Amy, sa ibang topic naman, because I know that hindi lang naman yung impeachment trial ang pinaghahandaan ng House of Representatives, but there are other legislative agendas sila and mga congressional hearings. I remember kasi nagkaroon ng resolution to do an investigation doon sa issue naman ng PGMN, diba? Yung website. Anong balita doon? Anong update?
So far, kasi nung na-file yun, Angela, nasa around Wednesday morning. So, hindi pa totally yan na ilalagay no, sa order of business pagdating sa House of Representatives. Pero nakita natin no, na itong representatives naman na Makabayan Bloc, including ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino, Representative Sara Ilago, and Representative Renico, sila mismo yung nananawagan no, na investigahan nga itong sa Peanut Gallery Media Network dahil nga daw sa red tagging, pati na rin sa misinformation na ginagawa ng content, na napapakita ng content dito sa PGMN. At actually, ang nasabi nila, nakakabahala din daw dito dahil baka nga raw nagagamit din yung public funds dahil nga sa pagpoproduce din ng content, dahil nakikita daw nila na nasi-share daw sa pages ng NTF-ELCAC yung mga content ng PGMN. So isa din yun sa nakababahala dahil nga ang concern dito syempre ay hindi nga ma-misinform at ma-disinform ang mga Pilipino. So kinakailangan din daw talagang tingnan at investigahan. And actually this particular bill din na ipinasa nga ng ilang mga lawmakers ay signed by 41 members of the House of Representatives. So titingnan natin kasi feeling ko magiging priority din ito talaga ng House of Representatives. Siguro most likely after na rin mapag-usapan yung sa political dynasty bill na hanggang ngayon ay natatalakay pa rin sa plenaryo, pati na rin yung Kalinga bill na hopefully nga daw ay by May 21 ay maipapasa na din sa Kamara.
Alright, maraming salamat, mobile journalist Amy Atienza.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Now let's talk more about the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte with political analyst and former National Security Advisor Dr. Clarita Carlos. Good morning, Doc. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Hi, good morning.
Well, we want to know your 2 cents
thank
po.
you.
Opo, doon po sa recent, before we go to the impeachment issue, we want to know your 2 cents doon sa nangyari po dyan sa Senate. Ano pong masasabi niyo doon?
Well, that is deeply disturbing, of course, because there are so many stories flying around. We really don't know what really is, what really happened. So, but that's how it is. There are as many stories as there are storytellers. But that is deeply disturbing because we have compromised a major institution of our government. And when you start compromising institutions of government, you know where we're going. Yeah.
That's true.
So do you think the executive department lacked proper coordination within its own agencies between DILG and the DOJ, and in the hopes that this could have been handled better?
Well, it is true that we can point fingers right now. I think there's a lot of explaining to be done by the law enforcement agencies because there are 3 of them there. You know, the security people in the Senate itself, headed by the Sergeant at Arms, then of course the NBI, and of course the Marines who were there, who are there really as a permanent detachment. So I don't know. Yeah. I guess right now everyone is giving his own version of the story, and of course Cayetano himself has his own version. So. Yeah, I mean, given all this, you know, all these stories flying about, I think the main point to really be concerned about is the compromise in our institutions. Right. You know, once you start, once you start not paying attention to what its main function is, and you see these kinds of behavior among our elected people, then you ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. But don't you think that this could have been avoided if the Senate actually didn't put Senator Bato de la Rosa in protective custody?
But he was already, isn't it?
Yeah.
They put him under protective custody.
Yeah,
but the thing is, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm also listening to what the lawyers are saying. And the lawyers are saying that the warrant of arrest, which had been issued in November really had superseded any other decision of the courts. I
Right.
think the Supreme Court also ruled on that. So, yeah, you're right. Maybe there would have been a better coordination and dapat binalangkas nila tong mabuti. No? Dami kasi trigger happy eh. Can you imagine? All of them were carrying big arms.
That's
For
right.
what? You know?
That's right, Doc. All right, Doc, isa pa nga. Well, all of this was happening on Monday. We saw the lower house impeach Vice President Sara Duterte and transmitted already yesterday yung articles of impeachment. Now, I'm sure you're monitoring the whole process sa Justice Committee pa lang. Based on the evidence that you've seen, do you think this is enough to convince the fence sitters sa Senate for a possible conviction, or do you think political numbers will play a big part?
Well, truth to tell, I'm not monitoring them because I was up to there already. I was more focused on the Iran war because it's the one I'm looking into. But yes, you know, the impeachment procedure is both a legal as well as a political activity. So when members of the Senate, the Senate, which is supposed to try for a possible conviction, Sara Duterte, when members of the Senate take sides immediately, even without listening to the evidence, then that's a red flag, you know.
Right.
You know, you can't make a decision, di mo pa nga nadidinig yung mga ebidensya, nagsabi ka na agad na hindi ka magboboto. I mean, what's the point?
That's
diba?
right. That's right, Doc.
But yes, realistically, because remember, they need to get 2/3 or 16 votes. I don't know if they have the numbers.
Kasi yung Doc, before, most of the senators on the Duterte side have already shown their colors yesterday pa lang, or how they supposedly coddled Senator Bato de la Rosa. How will this impact the overall political climate and stability of this nation while this process is going on?
Well, impeachment is something which is constitutionally provided for. We're simply saying we hope that the senators whom we have elected will really take on the cloak of somebody, you know, looking into the legal aspects of why impeachment charges are being made, and to make their own determination. They cannot make their determination along party lines or along whatever lines, I'm supporting this and that. No, you listen to the evidence first. That is why it's so appalling that some people already would make a declaration that they are not going to vote when the evidence has not yet been presented. No trial has yet begun.
Yeah, they haven't even convened as
Inunahan
an
mo na.
impeachment court yet.
Ano naman yung punto?
Yeah. Well, Prof. Kasi yesterday, yung tinatanong po si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, sabi niya, they will convene as an impeachment court on May 18 if the senators agrees with the rules. No? So I was looking at that phrase, yung sinabi niya, if the Senate, all the senators would agree with the rules. Because prior to that, meron pong recommendation mag-amend ng rules si Senator Rodante Marcoleta on how the senators will vote on such issues. No? Parang gusto niya po magkaroon ng electronic voting. So parang we all know what is going to be na kung kumbaga pag nawala po ang si Senator Bato de la Rosa sa plenaryo or sa impeachment court, maaari siyang bumoto electronically or kahit hindi po siya nandoon mismo sa court. So what can you say about that? Tama po ba na dapat binabago-bago yung mga ganong rules just to favor somebody?
Well, diyan talaga nakakayamot eh. Parang ginagawa tayo mga tanga at bobo, no? It really riles me. No, it really gets my goat. But you know, be that as it may, I don't know what number they need. Is it an absolute majority? Is it a plurality to change the rules? And they can change the rules. But we people, you know, the public who is watching this, I hope we will not vote these kinds of people again. You know, brainless, mga bobo, inept, and for God's sake. I mean, that Senate, I don't know, the two of you have not been born yet. Dati-rate, of course, during my time, you know, the Tañadas, the
Yes.
Rectos,
Salonga.
you know, the Salongas.
Yes.
I always wait for a privileged speech. Now, I don't even watch them. It's an utter waste of time. Diba? We
Well,
have
Doc,
better things to do.
Yeah.
well, Doc, lastly, before we let you go, well, we were watching yesterday a video of a speech of the late Senator Salonga,
Salonga.
the Senate President ata siya that time, and there was a comparison of his speech to the new Senate President, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Ano po masasabi niyo sa bagong Senate President that we have right now?
And how he was put there.
And how he was put there?
Not necessarily its president. No contest.
Galing talaga.
No.
Oo.
Well,
No
as-
contest.
Well, as usual,
Parang naman, kasalanan naman, Diyos Maria Joseph, huwag naman mag-compare, nakakapandiri naman yan. No? Wawa naman yung,
Exactly.
apologies to Salonga, please, no comparison.
definitely.
Hindi lang itong Senate President na to, no? We have really, what is the term? We have so diluted our criteria for who would, you know the meaning of Senate? Senatus. Senatus means person like me, 80 years old. That means you have grown in wisdom over the years.
Yes.
You cannot be growing there na may uhog ka pa sa ilong, no? And you don't know anything diddly squat about treaty making, international law, you know, status of forces agreement, etc. Diba?
Yeah.
I mean, look at all these people there. They're all, I have bad words for them. Baka tayo dito.
Good luck na lang sa atin.
Good luck na lang sa atin, Prof. And as always, it was really fun talking to you to get your insights and your very honest remarks. And thank you for your time, ma'am. Political analyst and former National Security Advisor, Dr. Clarita Carlos. Good morning.
Have a good day.
Good morning.
All right, the Philippine peso slid to a fresh record low against the US dollar on Thursday, closing at 61 pesos and 64 centavos. This breaks the previous all-time low of 61 pesos and 56 centavos recorded on April 29. During trading, the local currency opened at 61 pesos and 35 centavos and briefly strengthened to 61 pesos and 33 centavos.
Now, let's talk to John Paulo Rivera, Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Good morning and thank you for joining us again. Nice to see you, Paulo.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Magandang umaga. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so here we are again. What factors drove the peso to hit a new record low against the US dollar? Do you think that this recent political turmoil is also one of the factors that drove this peso to hit a new record low?
Yeah, so to get started with that, the peso weakness actually reflects combination of both global and domestic factors. Doon muna tayo sa globally, no? Globally, nandiyan yung strong US dollar, elevated oil prices, even the heightened risk aversion of investors. They're putting pressure on emerging market currencies, not only the Philippine peso. So in short, no, investors are actually preferring the US dollar rather than emerging market currencies, including the peso. So doon naman tayo sa domestic factors. Nandiyan yung slower GDP growth, higher inflation, including the political uncertainty. All of them, their combination, they're weighing in on investor confidence, on investor sentiment. But recently, the too much, the excessive political drama is actually not good for the economy and in the currency. Because, I have to emphasize this one. Yung strength, yung lakas and the strength of the Philippine economy ultimately reflects the strengths of our public institutions. And when our public institutions lose focus, the cost, no, the consequences, they're being borne by the ordinary Filipino people through weaker peso,
Yeah.
higher inflation, even reduced confidence. So the consequences, ordinaryong Pilipino ang tatamaan yan.
That's right. But
Right.
you know, yung recent developments sa Senate, there was an initial take for several businessmen saying that in the future or the coming days, this might drive a sentiment and lead to lower confidence, seeing that the Senate, supposedly an independent institution from the executive, have different interpretations of the law. Now, alam natin politika ito, but moving forward, how will this affect? Number one, of course, yung stock trading, kasi important factor yan sa growth natin. And number two, how will this affect businesses that are supposedly coming in pa lang in the next few months?
Siguro doon, no, on that aspect, no, yung mga record low events, no, those things that transpired in the last few days, they affect two things, no? Expectations and confidence, whether you are in the stock market, in the bonds market, in any part of the financial market, especially kasi, no, these record low events affecting expectations, confidence, it just so happened kasi that they are happening alongside yung ambagal ng GDP growth. We have a faster inflation, no? Even the additional domestic political noise is affecting this economic and financial system. Kaya nga, no, in the coming days siguro, no, the peso will remain volatile until this political noise is here. These disorderly movements are actually causing pressure not only on the exchange rate but also on other macroeconomic indicators.
So, ang tanong dito, do you think, let's take out, for example, what's happening in the Middle East. Kunyari, if hypothetically hindi nangyayari ito, do you think the peso yung foundation is strong enough to withstand a political noise that's happening like this? It wouldn't be as bad kung wala yung Middle East conflict in the scenario.
Oh, that's interesting. Sige, let's hold the Middle East conflict constant, no? The Philippines is actually very fortunate that we have a very calibrated, no, central bank, no? So with that, no, with that BSP intervening on a data supported level, policy interventions of the monetary authority are prudent. There's a strong foundation for the peso. But then we have to understand as well, no, that the BSP can only do so much, and that exchange rate movements are again, no, driven by both global and more so domestic factors.
That's right.
But there is foundation, but the BSP as a strong mover can only do so much.
But don't you think that our peso could reach 62 if the political noise won't stop?
Well, there is always the threat. Again, given the combination nga of Middle East conflict and the domestic conflicts that we have, there is a threat of the currency depreciating further. But for me, and this is how I see it based on previous trading days, the BSP is there to intervene, but not really to manage an exact value, an exact peso-dollar exchange rate value. But the BSP will be there to intervene, but it's more of the objective of smoothening, no, managing the excessive volatility that these external and internal events are bringing to the peso. We will always maintain, no, this prudent monetary stance, no, to anchor inflation expectations. So while there's the threat of 62, I believe, no, that our monetary authority has the capacity to manage.
But I was wondering what impact could a weaker peso have on our country as a host, no, of ASEAN summit this year. Diba? Shouldn't be using this opportunity, diba, na para mas mapalakas pa natin supposedly yung peso, but it's driving it the other way around.
Yun nga but I would call this priorities. No? So, since the Philippines is hosting the ASEAN and government is really doing its best to make bilateral, trilateral, multilateral agreements with different countries, but then other factors are causing disruptions to that objective of the national government, and this will funnel down, no, to making our hosting of the ASEAN more expensive. As we all know, no, all or majority of the economic activities in our country are import dependent, including our expenses to host this ASEAN summit. And we're also using fuel, we're also using food, and a lot of inputs just to host this one. And the way thing to that by making our hosting more expensive.
Well, we were talking about earlier the fuel costs, no, that would could also. And what about the, let's say, the ayuda or the subsidies that the government is giving to stakeholders? Will this also help, no, at least ease the burden doon sa pagbaba ng peso natin?
Well, this discussion is grounded on both short-term and long-term implications. Kasi personally, I did a study about this ayuda, fiscal management, fiscal constraints, and we have been saying that government's priority is really to alleviate the hardship, yung paghihirap ng mga kababayan natin ngayon pagdating sa presyo ng gasolina. So the ayuda can work because it temporarily, and I have to emphasize that, it temporarily alleviates the difficulty of paying high prices of oil. But then, government would also have to be very conscious of its implication in the medium term and long term. Kaya I suggest that there should be an exit strategy, meaning the ayuda should not be forever, should not be for a longer period of time, and that government would also have to preserve its fiscal space. And the ayuda can only do so much again, and it has to be targeted so that the ayuda will serve its purpose. Kasi nga, I've spoken to different recipients, and they say, let's say the 5,000 gasoline ayuda, nagastos din po namin siya sa grocery, sa kung ano mga expenditures, not necessarily on gasoline. So it defeats the purpose. Kaya it has to be targeted. Ayuda is okay, but it has to be targeted, and there should be an exit strategy for government to preserve our budget as well.
Well, kayo mga economists, iba-iba din yung mga yung mga take nyo on that, because may ibang economists naman okay sa kanila, mas magbuti na daw may subsidies kaysa magbawas ng tax because mababawasan yung revenue naman ng government. So iba-iba din yung take nyo on that. Well,
but I have to agree with that. The discussion on tax, kasi tax is a dangerous word.
Yes.
So we have to balance. It's really a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your insights. As usual, John Paulo Rivera, Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat.
And that wraps up today's episode and chaotic week.
Are you sure?
Of News and Views. For today, we don't know what will happen over the weekend. And Monday, baka...
Monday is the convening, supposedly, of the impeachment court. We'll see what's going to happen there. We haven't seen and heard from Senator Robin Padilla, who apparently drove his car with Senator Bato de la Rosa since the incident in the Senate. So we'll see what's going to happen.
Finding Bato.
Mahanap pa ba to? Join us again on Monday. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
May Angelo Castro III, kapatid, we are one you.
All sides, all the time.